Simon in Virginia, you're on the line with Jovan and Jimmy. Simon, how are you?
I'm good. Just to be completely honest and truthful, I'm not too familiar with you guys. I was kind of just scrolling and found you. So just so I'm aware before we begin any sort of debate, what are your exact positions? Like, what are your policy prescriptions as far as guns in America would go?
Neither of us want to ban guns. We think the proletariat should be armed. But I would require a person, especially you would start with some crazier weapons. So I have an assault rifle that can do massive damage. It's not made for self-defense. That's what the shotgun is, right? Even the handgun. It's a quick kill a lot of people if you had to kind of gun. And I would require people to certify that they are both mentally competent and capable of storing, using, safely possessing the exact rifle that I own.
Okay. So as far as the second part, I agree. I
let
agree.
Jovan get his answer in.
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize.
What you got, Jovan? Any other policies you'd add?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I don't. I would probably I would implement some type of system, much like driving, where you have to get a learner's permit first. You have to complete a certain amount of hours on a training course. I do believe insurance should probably be required on firearms, just like I would a car. Anything that can like commit a specific amount of damage, I think should be insured, so that anybody you do this to, blah, blah. I think ammunition should be registered with the state, not just the gun itself. Things like that. Things that I think are like fairly easy to implement that like wouldn't really abridge anybody's rights.
Okay. So first, the first part I'd like to debate, but the second part, as far as a background check, a more thorough background check, proof that you can hold on to the guns, things like that, I would actually agree with that. But my question is then, if we're going to ensure that people are capable of storing these guns and capable of doing everything with them, then why could we not even say, in exchange for the upgrade in security that we've now ensured, we've ensured that you can use the gun, we've ensured that you can store the gun properly, and according to whatever federal regulations you'd actually impose, could we then also agree that we could have, rather than take away things like you said, for example, that you think assault rifles should be banned, could we then allow assault rifles? Could we allow higher caliber weapons, even perhaps military grade weapons? Because I don't see quite maybe the distinction between why we're upgrading security and downgrading the caliber of weapon you can actually own. For example, I own an assault rifle. It shoots in 9mm. I also own several pistols that shoot in 9mm, both of which are semi-automatic. So when you define something as capable of doing more damage, I look more so to the calibers. And if we're looking at caliber, I mean, they make things in assault rifle platforms that use 9mm, such as the thing as I own. They make them in 22. So what specific guns then would you define as too high caliber, too high grade? I know this is a multifaceted question. I apologize for the civilians, the proletariat to own.
I don't think it's that useful for us.
That would be a Jimmy question, yeah.
Well, I don't think it's that useful for us to be the ones who would decide it. As far as you're saying the military grade stuff, no. Generally, right now, we're working with an already armed... we're not trying to put Pandora back in the box. So if we were starting fresh, where the limitations are going to be much different. Even what kinds of guns we're saying you need to cover, at least for myself, with all the extra licensing and insurance and stuff, I think would vary, or what kind of insurance and stuff. But whether or not I would then let a person who has demonstrated the highest level, no, I'm not going to take the libertarian position of like, yeah, technically, if you hit some level of responsibility, if you can afford a nuke, you can get a nuke. Where the actual lines would be, I don't think is even useful until there's even to start putting those lines down until there is clearly support and a position, a way to go forward with a law. Because I'm certain whatever I would tell you now, that line would get changed by more information and an actual serious approach to it. But you certainly wouldn't be getting automatic weapons. Assault rifles wouldn't be banned. I think you said we would. I didn't say that, but they would require a higher level of qualification to own.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. But which
I apologize, and I must have not heard the clarification on what you've asked. But then my question would be this: you said, for example, I mean, the purpose of the Second Amendment, in theory, is actually to a well-oiled militia. You've acknowledged that, and I don't fault you for it. But the previous gentleman asked then, and you responded and said you'd be bringing guns to a drone fight, and I don't disagree. But then why are you pro-Second Amendment if we can't have things that could, in theory, defend against the military? I mean, if they're coming in with drones, why couldn't we come in with fully automatic weapons if deemed at a level of security?
Because we're not pro-Second Amendment in that we think we're not pro. Let me. I'm not going to say that I'm necessarily pro-Second Amendment. I think the Second Amendment fits in the job that I want, which is not disarming the working class. I think the working class should not be disarmed because then it's just easier to subjugate. But like, whether it's by the second, I don't think we have a right to own guns. Let me say this. I think you can say that we have like a civil liberty. I don't think there's some inalienable right that we should have guns. Like, it's only codified in the Constitution. If we don't like it, change the Constitution. Like, I'm fine with something like that. I don't think we need to have, I don't think gun ownership needs to be a right, but I do think that like, we probably should keep the working class armed.
You don't think gun ownership should be a right, but you think we should keep the. And that's slightly confusing and slightly convoluted.
If there were, let me ask you a question. Wait, no, because let me just. I no. If we didn't live in a country, like let's say me and you lived on an island somewhere, do I need anything in writing to say that you have a right to gun ownership? No. Right. I don't think it needs to be a right. I just think sure, we can say right in the way that we're saying like we need to have something enshrined that says the government can't take it away from you. Right. But like we also don't need it to be a right in the Constitution for that. It can be like one of many other things.
Well, I think your example's flawed in that if we were on an island and it was just you and me, we have no established form of government. We have a government in America, and we have a government that has an army, an army that has one of, if not the highest expenditures of defense. They're obviously more well-armed than us. You guys have acknowledged that yourself. But the example that I would give is that we live in America, but we live in that place with that very well emanated, I guess, not really a word, army. And so I think we do need it written in hard proof, especially in
need
a constitution.
It isn't the same as whether we're saying it's basically a human right. You're saying we need it in response to the country we live in. You don't have to necessarily even go with the island example. If I moved to New Zealand, I would be fine not having the right because it still ends their entire like news month when a situation like Christchurch happens because it is so rare and because it is so obscene. And so they are in a situation where they both clearly care about the rights of the proletariat and they don't see the need for the workers' rebellion and they don't allow you to have military grade weapons there. And so I wouldn't sit there and be like, okay, but I'm not comfortable being here until I got my assault rifle back.
Well, then I suppose we have different levels of concern about the government. I think that if you see the government just as the idea of government throughout history, every time there's been a tyrannical regime, the first thing they've done is take away weapons. And I'd like to have it written somewhere that I have the right to keep and bear arms so that at the bare minimum, it's more difficult for the government to take them away. And they have to go through certain boundaries to unacknowledge the fact that I can own guns. For example, in America, changing the Constitution is very difficult. It's written in the Constitution that I have the right to keep and bear arms. So at the bare minimum, it would make it very difficult for the government to take away.
65% vote?
Yeah.
But here's the problem. It wouldn't, though. If the American government decided tomorrow that they wanted to take all of our guns, the Constitution's not helping you. It might help you post the revolution, seek some type of justice then. It's not going to help us when they come for the guns. The only thing that's going to help them when they come for the guns is us having the guns, right? And neither me nor
we're also right now living through a moment where you have a bunch of people who were the freedom people, the bunch of people who were like, don't infringe on my speech, don't and arguably the government is people, right? But they do become tyrannical. Well, What is the current strategy of the current tyrannical government? They're not going to come for the guns. They are clearly radicalizing the people on their side to violence. So it will be those Second Amendment people from the past, those people who were conservative, those people who were like, oh, we care so much about freedom of speech, even as we were so mad if you got banned on Twitter before, but now we'd like you to be banned from having a job. Those people that are radicalizing toward the day they're not going to come for everybody's guns at once, Simon, and it won't be the left. The way everybody was acting like, oh, liberals just want to come and take all your guns and you just have no guns. Donald Trump has had more gun control proposals than any Democrat, let alone leftist, because there aren't any leftists, than any Democrat had. He's the one who starts talking about, well, if you show you've got a mental issue, maybe we're going to come for your guns. We're going to come and we'll just take them away before you could do something. He's the one proposing those things as the first wedge in, because he's going to be the one who gets to then define what a mental issue is. They're literally trying to make Trump derangement syndrome a literal designation of a mental issue. So you're sitting there feeling more comfortable because if the government comes for you, because you're imagining a military marching on you, and that you're going to have a militia to fight back and be like, no, we're going to hold our homestead. It's not going to be them. It's going to be your radicalized neighbor. It's going to be the tyrannical government, but their extension into the people around you. It's not going to be, your guns are more, it is more of a threat that somebody, if you, I don't know if you're opposed to this current government, so maybe you won't be, but obviously I am. So my guns, for being vocally opposed, for hiring trans people, for spreading trans education on trans matters, these things that they are so against. And then when you talk to them, they're like, well, yeah, well, okay, but actually I kind of do agree. Your gun should be taken away. I'm not as worried about the military showing up to take my gun as I am my neighbor getting away from murdering me, because people would be like, well, we call it, they're the party of violence because they call us fascists and Nazis, but we only call them, communists after the Red Scare, pedophiles, even though we elected a pedophile president, groomers, those kinds of things that don't invoke violence at all, because you wouldn't be a hero for killing a pedophile. You'd only be for killing a fascist. Oh, wait, Trump called us fascists too. Simon, anyway, the coming back to the point, I know I went off somewhere. Where you think the danger is coming from is not, it's the government is people. It's coming from inside the house. It's going to be the people around you who now side with the tyrannical government, and the tyrannical government made sure to go after the most heavily armed portion of the population to get their sympathies.
Sorry, that was extremely multifaceted. I think I understand what you're saying.
It's my autism.
Personally, no, all good. Personally, I think I would disagree with you. Just on the premise that this specific administration is more likely to take my guns than the liberal administration, specifically because I could be mistaken once again, that they did try and establish a registry, which, establishing a registry is the first step to revoking guns, because now you know where everyone's guns are and everyone who owns guns.
But it's also the first step to a lot of things that aren't revoking guns. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like you can say it's there, but Donald Trump has actually described that he wants to be able to, when you have a person who's mentally ill, go in and get the guns before they do it. And when there was a big event that happened down in Florida, I don't remember which one it was because there's been so many now, but that was his solution, and that we're working with the courts to figure out so you can have a judge that can say, let's take those guns away. Remember, and talking about these people were on an FBI, they hadn't committed any crime, but they were on an FBI watch list. Why should they be allowed to have the guns? You can say that, but it's speculation on your part versus out of the actual mouths. Now, again, Simon, I will concede. I'm just going to go out on a limb and guess that as a libertarian in Virginia, you're probably white, you're probably cisgender, you're probably heterosexual.
I'm Hispanic, but I'm Hispanic and heterosexual, correct?
Okay. So I think, and being libertarian, you're also going to be considered a sympathetic extension, even though you're not a part of the MAGA movement. I think the danger of you losing your guns, as I mentioned before, probably isn't very high. But if you're saying that it's that your whole argument behind it is about the right to it, then you should be equally alarmed that mine has gone up. The danger of me losing my guns has gone up because they're going to be able to determine go to Twitter, buddy. Go to Twitter and look at basically anybody who has, now it's going to be if you have a friend who, because they're adding that the person supposedly, we don't actually know, but Tyler's girlfriend was trans, allegedly. Anybody associated with trans stuff, because that's where the violence is coming from. Even though they're less than 0.5% of all the gun violence, of the mass gun violence, that's where it is. Take it from them. Take it from anybody who has any ideology related to them, who could have radicalized them. They are clearly coming for the freedoms of other Americans. And if you, even as a Second Amendment guy, are saying like, okay, well, they are losing their rights, but maybe if they wanted them, I don't think you're saying this. I hope not. I hope you are saying you would march with those guns on behalf of them losing their rights, even if they aren't themselves armed. But it seems like a lot of people who are super Second Amendment people are like, I love the Second Amendment for me. And as long as my Second Amendment isn't ever in danger, fuck everybody else. I got mine. Fuck them.
Okay, so you've gone a lot of different places there. First and foremost, yes, I would concede that if, for example, the Republicans decided that it was on you as a neighbor to go and take away guns from people they have deemed as mentally ill, I would likely not be a person who had my guns taken away. I concede that. But I would then ask you, I'd ask you a question so I could lead into more questions. But my question would be this. Do you think that people, regardless of how you yourself define mental illness, do you think people that are mentally ill, because in the last segment with the Sam guy, you mentioned, for example, schizophrenia. Schizophrenics could still technically purchase guns right now. They'd have to hide their schizophrenia, I'd assume, because if you were looking around saying Batman's coming at me, you probably, the guy you're purchasing a gun from would likely not let you buy it, maybe. I don't know. Do you think that people who are mentally ill, whatever that definition is to you, should own guns?
The base phrase mentally ill would not be, because I have generalized anxiety disorder. It's not as bad these days, but you
just can't pull the full brush. Like there are people with schizophrenia who literally have never committed an act of violence in their life. I would say that people with violent histories that have shown they continue to engage in violent histories, maybe those are the people, right? Depending on the extremity of the violence. But like, no, I wouldn't say just because you're mentally ill, you shouldn't be able to own a gun. Yeah, though, there are certainly, I would want a clearance of a certain type for certain weapons, right? At whatever the highest end of weapons we say a citizen is allowed to possess, I would say the qualifications for that versus a bolt action rifle would be higher. And I dare say even nonviolent schizophrenic people, I probably would not. But I don't, again, this is the things where you get into the specifics right now. It's premature and somebody might be able to give me, by the way, schizophrenia, for the most part, it only shows up in this way. And the delusions of grandeur, whatever, only in these versions of schizophrenia, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not a schizophrenia expert, so getting into the specifics. But if my caricaturized understanding of schizophrenia is closer to reality, there are probably weapons that I would say, if your mental clearance does not, if that's in your evaluation to own whatever that highest level of weapon ends up being, wherever that line ends up getting put, there would probably be very peaceful people in a category who will never be able to possess those specific weapons.
Well, then my question would become, as far as how you classify what, for example, the beginning being bolt action, that makes sense to me. You chamber one round, you fire one round. So technically speaking,
I can already tell you're getting into a question I said I don't know the answer to yet. I am not here to draw the lines. If you're starting with how would you classify?
But you have drawn lines.
Until it is possible that we're going to actually do it, then I will get much deeper into that topic. But right now, most of my research goes into topics we actually have a chance at affecting change in, and right now the NRA has made it impossible to to pass even things that you and I both agree on right now could happen.
But you have drawn lines. You said that fully automatic weapons should not be owned by the proletariat. So that's a line, right?
Sure, there are the obvious ones. Nukes shouldn't be also.
agree.
It's very silly
I
to
agree that
point to
that'd be a
the
lie.
extreme examples that most of people agree to, as though I have now, that means I've sat down and thought through where the specific line would be. In fact, that is an example of not drawing the line. In fact, to say fully automatic weapons, that isn't drawing the line. That's only saying the line is somewhere, and I do know on this side of the line, nukes, full auto, tanks, well, certain kinds of tanks. I'm sure there are things that are classified as tanks that you could probably argue
I
are
understand
not
where you're
provides.
going
But
with
anyway,
I also
with the
just,
tank example.
I fully just don't care about the gun
Yeah.
debate. I'll be honest with you. There's
Yeah.
a reason why I never put it on my topic list, because I'm always just like,
I'm not as just not attached now. This doesn't
Yeah.
grasp me.
Yeah,
I
it doesn't-
apologize for the
doesn't do anything
topic.
for me.
I'm not familiar with either of you. I don't mean to be rude.
It's
I'm
fine.
just personally not.
Go ahead and
So-
make your
oh
final
no, yeah,
point,
none of
and
us,
we're going to move
I
on.
think you're wrong.
Well, I've gone on for like 20 minutes. I think we had a productive debate, and I appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, Simon.
All right. Have a good one.
Word.
Bye-bye.